So we have tibia and fibula, okay? There's no such bone as a fibula or a tibula. Oh, no, there is a fibula. There's no tibula. Tibia, T-I-B-I-A, fibula, F-I-B-U-L-A, okay? So, important notations. This part that looks kind of like it's a hammer, this is the proximal end of the femur. This is the part of the femur that goes into the pelvis, okay? Goes into that acetabulum of the pelvic bone. So the acetabulum forms like a socket, and the ball head of the femur sits in that acetabulum of the pelvis bone, okay? That allows for the pelvis bone, or for the femur to go out, go forward, go back. You can have some rotation. So if you wanted to, you could stand up and you could go hip flex, you could extend, and it's too bad you can't see my whole body. You can go out and in, all because of this rounded motion. Okay, so this is the head of the femur. There's an indentation in the head of the femur. This is called the fovea capitis. So this would be something that it might be hard to see in the picture, but you could draw an arrow at this spot. This is the fovea capitis, it's an indentation. And there's a ligament that attaches in this fovea capitis into that acetabulum to kind of hold the femur in place. This section here is called the surgical head. A lot of time if someone breaks their hip, what they're doing is they're breaking the surgical neck of the femur. But they call it breaking their hip. There's two really large projections. The main one is called the greater trochanter. What a big chunky word, trochanter. Greater trochanter. So you can see it all the way around. Greater, it's really big. A trochanter is a muscle attachment location. So muscles for all of your muscles that start in your trunk or start on your pelvis and then allow for flexion and extension and abduction. Adduction can attach here. On the back or the posterior side, and this is one of the ways that you can tell anterior and posterior, on the posterior side, there's another big old lump for muscle attachment, and it is the lesser trochanter. So greater trochanter, lesser trochanter. In between here, they would call that like an intertrochantal groove, but we don't really define that very much. So greater trochanter, lesser trochanter, head of the femur, fovea capitis, surgical neck. We'll stay on the front for a minute. Okay. So on the anterior side, if we go all the way down the shaft of the femur, because this is just the diaphysis, but this is still the front view or the anterior view. We get down to the bottom here, and this would be covered by articular cartilage. This is the distal end. This is what's going to form the knee. We have a little spot here. Oh, I forgot to bring the patella. We have a little spot here where the patella sits, and the patella looks like a disc. It's your kneecap. So the patella is also known as the kneecap. There's a little indentation there for where the kneecap would sit. But these smooth, rounded spots are called condyles. Condyles are always where bones connect to other bones. So the condyles rest on the condyles of the tibia, and you see how they're rounded to allow for the knee to flex. So medial, if this is the part that goes into the hip, okay, this is the hip side, this is the outside. So this is the medial side of the bone, this is the lateral side of the bone. We define the smooth connecting part as the medial condyle and the lateral condyle. So the smooth connecting spot on the outside is the lateral condyle, medial condyle. We have a rough spot just above that bulges out, and this is where the muscles attach and the ligaments attach. Those MCLs, medial collateral ligament, and the LCL, the lateral collateral ligament. These attach on these what we call epicondyles. So there's a ligament, 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 ligament to hold the knee together. We're going to talk about joints second semester when you guys come back, so we'll define all of the ligaments of the knee much more, okay? So we have medial condyle, lateral condyle, medial epicondyle, which is near the surface, okay, and the lateral epicondyle. And then the last thing that I would really talk about on the anterior side or here is this is an intercondylar fossa or groove. Your ACL and PCL crisscross in here. On the posterior side, so on the back side, again, we have that lesser trochanter, and then we have a nubby here and a rough spot down here that is what we call the gluteal tuberosity. So if we're going to talk in class on the humerus, there's a space called the deltoid tuberosity. This is the gluteal tuberosity, this nubby and then this rough spot. It's where the gluteal muscles can attach. And then outside of that, the rest of the posterior side, there's not much to see. You can look at the lateral condyle and the medial condyle. Okay, so this is the femur. We would then go to the tibia, okay? The tibia is the weight-bearing bone that creates your shin. It is the weight-bearing bone that creates your shin. So it's otherwise known as the shin bone. And I make the distinction, the tib-fib, join like this. They join like this, okay? Join like this right below the knee, but you'll notice that the fibula doesn't touch the femur. There's no body weight supported on the fibula. The fibula is more about supporting the tibia, but it doesn't support your body weight. So all of your body weight goes from the femur into this tibia. There's not a lot of locations that you have to know on the tibia. You have to know that this is the tibia. It's the shin bone, okay? You again, once you identify, there's this location down here that looks kind of like a heel. Reminds me of like Minnie Mouse's heel. This is what we call the malleolus. You know how when you touch your ankles, there's that bump, those ankle bumps? Those are called your malleolus. Your tibia forms the medial or the inside ankle bump. So this is the medial malleolus. This is the front or the anterior view. So this bump on the front is the anterior view. So what I do is I pick up the tibia, I find the front, and then I look at the bottom and go, oh, this is the medial malleolus, so the inside ankle bump. So I'm going to put this on the inside, this on the front. So this is my left tibia, okay? So now that I know my left and my right and front and the back, then I can figure out, well, this spot right here is where the femur sits, and this spot right here is where the femur sits. So this would be my medial or my inside condyle, and this is my spot right here is on the outside or the lateral condyle. All of these other projections are where the ACL, the PCL sit to hold that whole knee structure together. Also, this spot here is covered with almost what we would consider like a brake pad. It's a layer of connective tissue and cartilage called the meniscus. And the meniscus, most of us know, it reduces pressure and it provides lubrication and friction protection so that the bones never touch each other. Bones touching bones is very, very painful. So when you have a torn meniscus or a ripped meniscus or the meniscus has worn away, you have a lot of knee pain. So medial condyle, lateral condyle, we don't name those. We would call these medial epicondyles and lateral epicondyles. Again, we have ligaments that attach to the femur above. And then we have this nub right here. Consider that there's a patella, that there's a little round disc that sits right here, your kneecap, which protects all of the inner structures. The patella is held into place by muscle structures. Okay, and so we have muscles from our quads that attach to the kneecap and then attach right here at what we call the tibial tuberosity. You should notice by now that every time I say tuberosity, I'm talking about muscle attachment. So the tibial tuberosity attaches all of your thigh muscles, your quad muscles. They all join at the patella and then into this tibial tuberosity, which then allow, if your leg is straight, I'm kind of on a lateral view now, so, okay, it allows for when the knee is bent and the quad contracts, it pulls that quad forward, okay? So tibia, weight-bearing shin bone, tibial tuberosity, medial lateral condyle, medial malleolus. Wake up, boy. Last lower limb bone is the fibula, okay? For the fibula, you just need to know F-I-B-U-L-A. It is non-weight bearing. We have two ends. We have the head that definitely looks more like it's a shape. This is the head. This is the proximal end. This kind of rests in with the tibia. Okay, you have to get it just right, but it rests in there with the tibia. And then there's the other end. Okay, this other end is not as defined in its shape. This is the lateral malleolus. So this creates your outside ankle bump. Okay, that's all we have to know on the fibula. This is the fibula, head, lateral malleolus. Okay. And I'm going to spend 1 minute going on the foot, and then I'm going to leave you be. Your foot has three main sections. You've already done the reading. So you have your, like the instep or the arch of your foot. You've got your toes, and you've got your heel and the ankle, okay? So like in the hand, the wrist is made up of bones called carpals. Your heel and ankle are made up of bones called tarsals. And they're short bones usually, kind of squarish, okay? There are 7 tarsals. There's 8 carpals, there's 7 tarsals. And they create the structure of the heel and the beginning of that kind of arch of your foot. So if we look at it from the medial side, this is the inside. There's 2 tarsals that we might ask you to name. There's the one that rests on the top. It's really rounded. Okay, this is called the talus. The talus articulates or connects, and I'm sorry, this is a right foot and a left tibia, but we're going to pretend like they fit together. Okay, the tibia sits on the talus, and it allows for your foot to point, which we call plantar flexion, where you point your toes, and for you to dorsiflex or pull your toes towards your nose. If you're tumbling, or in gymnastics, you would cowboy that. Okay, so that allows for this flexion. Okay, flexion and extension. So talus, it's really big. The other tarsal bone that we would identify is this big one. This is called the calcaneus. C-A-L-C-A-N-E-O-U-S, calcaneus. This creates the heel. It supports a lot of the weight of our actual foot. And our Achilles tendon attaches to the back of the calcaneus, which then the Achilles tendon then supports your calf muscles, the gastrocnemius and the soleus muscle, to help with that dorsiflexion. This is dorsiflexion, and this is plantar flexion. The instep, or the rest of your foot, the sole of your foot, these are called metatarsals. They're middle tarsals. So if these are the tarsals, these are the middle tarsals. We number them from the big toe or the thumb on our hand. Our metacarpals are numbered from the thumb. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So these are the instep. And then we have our toes. And these, just like in the hand where our fingers are called phalanges, the toes are phalanges. And, we number those from big toe on too, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In every toe except for the big toe, we have a proximal phalange, proximal phalange, proximal, proximal, proximal. In the second, third, and fourth, and fifth toe, we have a middle phalange, middle, middle, middle. And then every toe has a distal phalange. So this is where your toenail is. Distal phalange, distal phalange, distal, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you see an x-ray of a foot, it's really only the very tops of the toes that are what stick out and what we wear in our shoes and what we paint our toenails, okay? So foot. Use this video to help you label the pictures of the foot.